This is our love story. My name's John, and this is
Nancy.
Nancy with an I. That's right. So we thought we'd stop into Cambria and tell our love story. We came all the way from Atlanta, Georgia, almost 3,000 miles just to do this, didn't we?
Right. We saw it online. We're lying.
That's right. So how did we fall in love? We've only been married for almost 8 weeks now. And the way we fell in love, or still falling in love, is a story. And it all started when Nancy began to chase me. And I always like to say that you chased me until I caught you.
Right.
Which is actually very true.
Right.
And so why don't you start? Just briefly say how things set up a little bit, how you saw me and stuff.
Okay. Well, let's see. I guess 3.5 years ago, my husband of 34 years died very suddenly. And it was just a whole horrible life-changing event, and never dreamed that I could ever be happy again, or and certainly was not looking for anyone to fill those places. I'm a Christian believer, and the Lord really took care of me during that time and encouraged me and provided for me and healed me to a point where I decided it would be nice just to get to know people. And so we were at a small group where there were other couples and other people there. And I heard him share in this group, and we all shared together. And I decided I'd like to get to know him better. Yeah.
You did.
So I just came to him and said, one night after the meeting, said, I'd like to get to know you better, just as a friend, just as a friend.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was true, just as a friend, because I thought it was very interesting and wanted to know his story. I like stories. So what happened then?
Well, nothing really. We texted back and forth a little bit. We were going to go to a meeting like teenagers. We were going to go to a meeting with this group in Pawleys Island, South Carolina, and we were texting back and forth to talk about that. And we were talking about keeping dogs and money and how to get there. And I found Nancy interesting, but I certainly was not interested in a romantic relationship at all. But then we decided to go have lunch. Actually, it was a
meeting.
A meeting.
It wasn't a date.
Right. We went to Callaway Gardens in Pine Mountain, Georgia, and had a great lunch, talked a lot about a lot of different things. And I didn't know that Nancy was kind of sweet on me. Is that safe to say or not?
Well, not at that point,
No.
but I was very interested.
And I was, what was I? I was oblivious. And I was sort of seeing some other person, not really, just starting to forge a relationship with somebody else, having some lunch occasionally. And so time went on, right? And
we kept texting. Lots of texting.
A lot of texting.
A lot of texting. I got so excited every time the bubbles came up on the screen.
iPhone.
Just to see the bubbles. What was he going to say next? And it was just making my heart flutter just like a teenager all over again.
Well, and I felt that too. I did. But so I was going to have lunch with this other person, and I told you that.
Yeah.
And that landed on you?
It did. I found myself very jealous, and I thought, where does this come from? Jealousy? Come on, we are just friends. We had a meeting. Now, my friend said, did he open the car door for you? And I said, yes. And they said, did he pay for the meal? And I said, yes. And they went, this is not a meeting. This is a date. Mm-hmm. I went, no. It's just a meeting. So, yes, I found myself jealous. And I thought, where did this come from? I mean, out of nowhere, where did this come from?
Is that when you scheduled another meeting at the lake?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. I said, we've got to talk about this. We've just got to talk about this. I need to apologize. I've jumped into this too quickly. But see, because we were texting all the time, it's like, what does this mean? I'd never done a relationship with texting before. So we met at the lake. I think it was Labor Day, September. And I said, I am so sorry that I've jumped ahead with this, but for the first time in these 3 years at that point since my husband David had died, that my heart had cracked open just a bit and it had turned toward him. And that was a big surprise, but it was a good surprise. So I just need to tell him I'm sorry. I was being like a silly teenager girl. Yeah.
Right. It was a great meeting. Something landed on me then, but I remember saying to you, I'm just not there. I'm just not there.
Yeah.
And I also remember at the end of that meeting when we went to your house and I dropped you off, if this is the right one.
Yeah, that's the right one.
We hugged, and it was a long hug, and you wanted to be held and hugged. You wanted to be held tight and hugged a lot. And I did it, but I was scared because I wasn't feeling the same things you were. But then something happened. I was again going to go have lunch with, dare we say, Carol, up in Atlanta. And for some reason, I felt like I'm cheating on Nanci. I'm going to have lunch with this person. That's it. It's just lunch. But I felt this overwhelming sense that I was somehow violating something with Nanci. And so I called her and told her I was doing this. And she was very gracious about it on the phone. And I told her that I would give her a call afterwards. And I went up and had the lunch. And afterwards, I just was talking to God and asking him, what am I supposed to do here? What's going on? I need to hear from you. And I heard, I believe clearer than I've ever heard before, spend time with Nanci. Later that day, I called Nanci, texted her actually, and said there's something I want to talk about. But there was stuff going on, and you were very confused. You had a pretty bad day that day, as I recall.
Yeah.
You want to tell that or not?
Well, I had a second mammogram because they had found problems or supposed problems, and I'd had problems in '07 with a little surgery. So it was kind of an emotional day. Is this going to be the beginning of cancer? What is it going to be? And then I was just convinced that John was going to be in touch with me and say, I'm sorry, I really can't do this. Even though we were just friends.
But that's not what happened at all. That's not what happened at all. I called her and we talked, and I said, I think the Lord is leading me, telling me, as strange as that sounds, to spend time with you. And that's what I did. And that's what we did. And that was in fact, what day it was. What day was that?
It was September 4th.
September 4th. And what day did I propose to you?
September 17th.
So it's one of those things where I began to spend time with her and realized that God really was giving me a chance at loving the right way. And you were the one that he was blessing me with to do that. Mm-hmm. And it was just one of those things where I mean, I've been married twice before. I don't think I knew. This time I just knew and still do. And then you put a wedding together from September 17th to March 7th.
Yeah, really, we started in January, though, putting the wedding together.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, we did. And it was, he wanted a wedding. It was his fault. He wanted a wedding. And what better place than Callaway Gardens, where we first had our first meeting. And there at the beautiful little tiny chapel on a little lake. Look it up, CallawayGardens.org, I think it is. And it was beautiful with family and friends. And And like I said, I never dreamed I'd ever do this again. I never did. But because the way that the Lord has, I've sought him and asked him for help. And in his word, he says he will be your husband to the widow. And I believe he's that to the widow and to the divorcee and any single moms out there, if they will call on him. And he's provided everything I've needed and more. And John is a big, big, big part of that. And I'm very grateful. Very grateful.
I am very grateful too. I love you. I never thought I could love like this. Really didn't. Here we are putting this out for everybody to see, but that's okay. Love is pretty vulnerable stuff. And so this week we're just taking a trip from Southern California all the way up, maybe to San Francisco, maybe further north, we don't know, just spending time together and seeing the beauty of God's creation.
Yeah.
So,
We're grateful.
Very grateful. Thank you
Yes.
for taking the time to watch this. And my counsel is take a chance on love. It's
Yeah,
better to have loved and lost than never to have loved at all.
that's right.
And I won.
I won.
That it?
That's it.